the EcoBoost Mustang. This one is in convertible form, and as you can see, it is in a rather classic yellow. The 2.3-liter EcoBoost motor boasts 310 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. And today we're going to explore if it is an economically viable alternative to the V8. This particular tester has the 10-speed transmission, so to some this might be the opposite Mustang to what they would choose, a manual V8. But I didn't mind living with it for a week. I found the seats comfortable and the interior amenities useful. However, I did notice some quirky design bits. For example, the seat belts don't retract if you have the seat too far back, and when you get in and start the car, it moves the seat forward. And when it does that, it makes, well, this sound. But those things aside, let's talk about the looks.
Now, I think the Mustang looks fantastic. The proportions are excellent. I would personally buy the hardtop, but I do like the way that the convertible looks. I think the front end on these looks great. Those hood vents, by the way, are real. Now, the thing is that a yellow convertible Mustang kind of screams, I'm a retired suburban dad who finally purchased that one car he's been waiting for his whole life. And if you were a retired suburban dad who finally purchased that one car he's been waiting for his whole life, wouldn't you want a yellow convertible Mustang with a 5.0 badge on the side? All right, now I need to preface this review with a statement. I love the new Mustang. I love the new 5-liter V8 Mustang. I think the Mustang is a fantastic car right now. I think it looks great, I think it drives great, and many of you watch my Mustang versus Stinger video. I loved the Mustang on the track. It was one of the most engaging, fun, balanced, exciting cars that I've driven in a long time. And that engine is borderline exotic, right? There is a GT350, which genuinely is exotic. But the 5-liter V8 and the regular V8 Mustang is a fantastic power plant, and I love that car. I think I would even buy one. Now, we're in the EcoBoost Mustang. So, you might buy this one because you don't need a 5-liter V8, or you don't want a 5-liter V8, or you think you want a more economical Mustang. And you might buy a 10-speed transmission because, I don't know, you can't drive a manual, or you just don't want to deal with it in traffic. And that's genuinely a thing that you should think of, is like you have to commute with the car, you might not want a manual. So this 10-speed is actually a really good transmission. I actually drove that in the 5-liter Mustang on the track, and I loved it. The transmission was fast, the space between shifts is very small, so you're right in the power band, and it was responsive and it didn't take away from the Mustang at all. Now, this combination of this EcoBoost engine and this 10-speed transmission is not good, straight up. Let's go over some things about this car that I genuinely don't like. Unfortunately, there's a large list, and then at the end, we're going to get to the things that I do like, because there are still some parts of this Mustang that I really, really do like. All right, let's start with the engine. Well, it's turbocharged, and it's not nearly as fast as I think that it should be. I know it's not as fast as the 5-liter V8, but I still feel like it should be more powerful than it is. The power delivery is lumpy at best. You get a surge of torque right when you put your foot down, and then you kind of get a massive gap where nothing happens, and then you get a surge of torque again at 4,000 RPM, then you hit the red line, and then it's over. And not a lot in that power band is exciting or sounds good. Now, some of these things are controllable by your right foot. You just don't jab the throttle. But the thing is that you actually have to be careful to drive this car smoothly. I've been driving it around in manual mode because I don't like the 10-speed in this, and here's what I've found. If you are on and off the throttle too aggressively, there's enough slack in the drivetrain and slack in the suspension that you get jerky forward and backwards motions. So like on and off the throttle, the whole car kind of jerks back and forth. It goes back and forth like this as you come off the throttle. So you can actually see the RPMs going up and down. You hit the throttle, you get a little spike because Ford thought that they would want to give you that kind of V8 feel, that chunk of torque right down low, and then they back off the throttle, and then they progressively give you throttle. It's all electronically controlled, right? If this was a cable throttle, I might be singing a different tune right now, but it's not. So you hit the gas, and there's a surge, and there's nothing, and then there's a surge. And I don't know how to change that. Okay, so it's hunting for gears quite literally all the time. It has no idea what gear it wants to be in. and sometimes it refuses to trust that there's going to be torque in the engine, so it downshifts aggressively. See, 5, 4, 5, 4, 4, 6, 7, 6, 6, 5, 4. That's what the gears are literally doing. It's constantly changing gear, and it drives me absolutely insane. So I gave up on comfort mode. I started driving in a manual. Sport mode is worse, by the way. So you click the gear selector back once into sport, and then it downshifts more aggressively, but then it doesn't put you in the right gear after that to cruise along. It holds you in a lower gear, but then you go to give it some gas, and it's like, oh, you wanted to just kind of continue cruising, so then it drops you into 6th, 7th, 8th gear. Now, I have no idea what it's doing. We're gonna click it over into Sport Plus mode. All right, Sport Plus sharpens some things up, and it gives you a different dashboard. And it gives you chunks of power, as far as I can tell. So the combination of the random gear changes, the slack in the drivetrain, and the weird lumps of power that come on, this is the jerkiest car that I've driven all year, easily, right? Track mode is great. I used it on the track with the 10-speed with the 5-liter, and it sharpens everything up, and the steering weight's up, and everything feels good and sharp and fine. Unfortunately, if you're in auto mode, you still get chunks of weird power, and the transmission is still super all over the place. But we will kick it into sport mode. We've got the paddles on now. We're in track mode, which is genuinely used for the track because it backs the traction control off. Let's go over into drag strip mode. Okay, drag strip mode is weird. All right, I've used drag strip mode in the 5-liter Mustang on an actual drag strip, and what it does is, I have no idea why Ford thought this was a good idea. It gives you this huge chunk of throttle as you upshift, which jerks the whole car under full throttle. And when you're going down a drag strip at 160 kilometers an hour, and it jerks the throttle and sends the car into a little bit of a shimmy and an upshift, poo comes out, in the words of Jeremy Clarkson. What's it doing? Why does it do that? So, I don't like the drivetrain, I don't like the transmission, I don't like the modes and how they change it, unfortunately. The 5-liter V8 Mustang is still an excellent car. I love that, and I would personally own it in a manual. This car in a manual would be a lot better. You still have some weird kind of power band things to deal with, but then you wouldn't have to worry about the transmission and all of its jerkiness. All right, things that I like about the Mustang. So, the front end on this car is actually really, really good. I have 3 steering modes. I have normal, comfort, and sport. I just leave it in sport because it adds what feels like, sometimes they add weight to the steering electronically. This actually feels like they're backing off the power steering assistance and letting you feel the road more. I genuinely like the front end of this car. I think it turns in well, and I think that it is an engaging car from a steering perspective. I find the steering to be quite sharp, quite accurate, right? There's obviously lean, but it definitely is an engaging front end. I like the way the steering wheel feels in my hands, and I'm okay with the driving position. It's kind of a classic car driving position. The steering wheel's kind of down instead of coming out in front of you. But it's still good. I do like the way that the car feels on a back road. Now the chassis itself, we have the convertible, so it's not as stiff. It is engaging as a car to drive because it talks to you. The road undulations and the bumps in the pavement are communicated decently well through the steering wheel, and you are aware of what the surface is like and what it's doing. However, I've found that this Mustang can be sent into a skid very easily. Not a fun progressive Miata type skid, but a scary oversteer skid. In the middle of a corner, if you hit a bump, you get scuttle shake because of the convertible and however they've tuned the suspension, and it kind of upsets the car and sends it into a little bit of a slide. You can hear the tires chirp. It's scary. It genuinely is. So that's not something that I'm going to give a thumbs up on. I like the way that the car feels, but it doesn't feel very refined to me. I think that the hardtop Mustang is definitely the way to go if you're looking for performance. Now, other things that I like about the car, and there are a lot actually, I like the interior. I think it's really cool. Some of the materials feel kind of low rent, but that doesn't take away from it. It all works together. It's not like they put some really expensive stuff in one part and then cheaped out in other places. Everything kind of feels the same, and it's all blended together nicely. The dashboard looks cool, kind of classic looking. The center console is in an easy to reach spot. I like the climate control system, and the toggle switches for driving mode, steering, traction control are all really cool looking, and they work quite well. This package has cooled seats and heated seats, and it has the larger infotainment system, which is really easy to use. I like Ford's infotainment. This has been in a lot of their cars now. I think it's easy. Apple CarPlay works brilliantly, and maps are easy to run through. Audio controls are easy. The climate controls pop up there if you use them. Everything's decent. This one has oil pressure and boost gauge up here as well, and you can change the color of those on your digital screen here, which is easily the biggest highlight of this car. I really like the digital screens on these new Mustangs. It's definitely worth considering. If you are considering buying a Mustang, looking at a used one from a couple years ago, spend the extra and get this, because this is a really cool feature. It makes the whole car feel futuristic and classic at the same time. The graphics are excellent. It's laid out perfectly. Running through it is simple, right? I go to different screens and I can set 2 different color tones. I can set a, let's say I've got orange gauge rings and I've got purple where my needle goes. It shows me like a purple stripe, and I can change the whole theme to purple if I want, or green or blue or yellow, and that changes the colors of those 2 gauges up there. You can adjust the ambient lighting as well in the car, which makes the car just feel fun and special and exciting. And while performance, you don't get it, the open top is fun. Cruising in the summertime, I've had a good time just with the top down. The only complaint I have about it is that you use this kind of handle to open the top, and then you hold a button to push the top all the way back, but there's no indication of when it's locked. So you sit there and you hold it and you kind of just look around and go, oh, I guess it's open now. There's no beep or anything to tell you that it's open. And when you put it up, it doesn't automatically put those 2 little triangle windows up in the back. So it is easy to put the top up and get out and accidentally leave those 2 little windows open. So that's a few other issues that I have with it. Now, I've said a lot of bad things about this car, but I do want to remind you that the Mustang, the 5-liter V8 Mustang, is a very good car, and I would buy one in a heartbeat. I don't think I could pull off Mustang ownership, me, visually, but I would still own a Mustang, and those cars in the right hands are genuinely wickedly fast at a track. In fact, the first place winner on Ontario Time Attack this year, the series that I run in, was Chris Basinski in a yellow 5-liter Mustang, and he sets some shocking times in that car. He genuinely does. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, well, get the EcoBoost Mustang for fuel efficiency. That's why you get it. You don't get it for performance. If you want performance, then you get the 5-liter V8 and you don't deal about fuel economy. Normally, I would agree with you. Unfortunately, you're not getting good fuel economy with this car. In fact, I'm getting what would be known as terrible fuel economy. So I've been averaging, since I reset this trip meter with 173 kilometers, 15 liters per 100 kilometers. That's actually worse than the Ford F-150 that I had. No idea how I've got that. I mean, I have been booting around in the car trying to get a handle on the transmission and engine, so I haven't been gentle with my right foot, but still, averaging 15 liters with highway in there as well. The overall average for 3,000 kilometers in this car is 10 liters per 100 kilometers, which is not bad, but it's not good either. It's not good enough to justify the EcoBoost. That's the problem. If you were getting 8 liters per 100 kilometers, I would deal with the less power, I would deal with the weird engine characteristics, I would deal with the fact that it doesn't sound good. But you're not. You're getting decent to poor fuel economy. Sorry, folks. If you want a Mustang, buy the 5-liter V8. End of story. So, thank you for watching Throttle House. My name is Thomas Holland. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. You know what you're supposed to do. I also have a website, thethrottlehouse.com, and Instagram, @thethrottlehouse. Make sure you subscribe. I said that already, because I can't think of anything else I'm supposed to say. Oh, you can buy these t-shirts at my Spreadshirt store down in the description. And I think there's something else that I was supposed to tell you, but I don't remember what it is. So, bye.